Welcome everybody. We're just welcoming people. We have a few more people. We're just welcoming them into the space, and then we'll get started right away. And thank you for your patience. I know we're a couple of minutes behind, but we're good to go. I think we've got everybody. Well, welcome everybody. I'm Vicki Bungie, and the professor and the AD of research here in the School of Nursing. And before we get started, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that UBC is situated in the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam. And with great gratitude for their stewardship for land and water, we are here today to gather to have two fabulous people come and talk to us about dementia and stigma. And so I want to welcome everybody to our I won't say inaugural. We used to have nursing rounds that got kind of lost along the way when in busyness. But we're very happy to be back in nursing rounds here at the School of Nursing. And today we have Dr. Alison Phinney and Mr. Jim Mann, and I'm going to hand it over to them to let them introduce themselves and to take us through their talk. And we should have some opportunity for questions at the end, and I will help to moderate, and you'll be able to type those into the chat. I also want to let everybody know that the session is being recorded, and it will focus on the speakers and the slides. And it will be available online afterwards. Give us a day while we download and move it into on the School of Nursing website. So thank you, Jim and Alison, for graciously be our first team back to nursing rounds, and I will hand it over to you.
Thank you so much. Let's see if we can get the slides working. And it's not. And it's not. Wait a second. And it is. Three times lucky. I want to thank you all for coming. And Jim, it's so good to see you here. And on my screen, sitting right below you, Jim, I see Granville, who has been so involved in this work. So I say thank you for coming, Granville. And we'll, it is a talk. It's going to be a conversation today to talk about this work that we've been doing. So we're 4 years into and really coming to the end of a project that was funded by CIHR, the Canadian Institutes of Health Research. The title of the project was this long formal thing, putting social citizenship into action, reducing stigma and promoting social inclusion of people with dementia. And you can see some of our team in this beautiful photograph that we took in June out behind St. John's College. This is really, it's most of us as we are right now at the end of the project, but there have been many, many more people involved throughout the 4 years, and we'll share their names with you at the end. So today, what we really want to do, so Jim and I are two of the principal investigators, and our third PI is Deb O'Connor in the School of Social Work. You can see her laughing her head off in the middle of the back row, standing beside Jim. And as I said, the project is really wrapping up now. And so today, what we're hoping to do is just provide a bit of an overview of what happened. And I want to do that fairly quickly, because we want to focus mostly on what has come out of the project and really paying special attention to the Flipping Stigma Toolkit, and especially what the work we've done in the last year, which was really a time of looking back and telling the story. And the action group, the group of people with dementia in this participatory research, have taken the opportunity to really reflect on what they themselves have learned and really what they want others to know. I've talked about it as a kind of call to action so others can step forward and partner with researchers and make change in their own communities. Right. I'm going to keep my eye on the time. So this is just what the session today will be doing. I'll speak very quickly to how the project began and really the underpinnings, how we've been thinking about it, what the research objectives were. quick overview of all the research activities, but as I said, focusing on these two key project outcomes, a toolkit and a guide. So we really got started by bringing together a team, because it's been a big team. It started small. It started with just Deb and myself wanting to do a project together. She was interested in PAR, participatory action research, and she wanted to work with an action group of people with dementia, being very interested in process. She wanted to know what she could learn by working together with people. I was interested as a nurse, maybe a bit more interested in integrated knowledge translation, IKT, using community-based participatory research. I wanted to learn how people with dementia could be much better involved in community life, not just receiving services, but actually being meaningfully involved in planning and service delivery and evaluating. Deb was interested in stigma. I was interested in inclusion. The funder was interested in both, but we didn't get funding the first time. I think we even missed out the second time. But when we finally invited Jim to the table, not as an advisor, but as someone with lived experience who would be a co-principal investigator with us, it was then, I think, the project design changed. And I think the way we talked about it, the argument changed in really important ways. And then we got the funding. So the idea was to bring a diverse group of people with lived experience of dementia to join the project as members of an action group who would help lead and shape ideas of what needs to be done in community. So, okay. The research had two objectives. The first was to take that idea of social citizenship, which is very academic, and develop a more practical understanding. And we would do that by building on the lived experience of people with dementia. And we would use that very practical kind of, we talked about it initially as a kind of framework, to take that to community groups who would then be better equipped to support social citizenship of people with dementia. So two objectives. And in doing, with that under our belt, we started in 2019 in the Collingwood Neighborhood House. We brought together a group of people with lived experience. We met once a month and learned pretty quickly that social citizenship was never going to fly. I think, Jim, it was like, what the hell is that? Was really what people were saying. And what we learned very quickly was the problem was really about stigma. So we were learning from each other. Ideas were starting to take shape, and then March happened. And we took, I don't know, I think 2 or 3 weeks, hey, Jim?
Yes.
And flipped to Zoom. We missed one meeting along the way, but we started in online. It was a very steep learning curve, but we pretty quickly got into the Zoom groove. We came together every 2 weeks for an hour and a half. And we would have a bit of a get together for half an hour and then an hour and a half working meeting. And then the next day, researchers would get together and have a debrief, kind of reflect on what happened, make plans for moving forward. You can see roughly the size of the group over time. It's been 6 to 11 people. In September, we had our 80th meeting. And really, the focus of this has been on action, on participation, on having good facilitation and behind the scenes support to make sure people could be online well. And we spent the first year really kind of getting to know each other and trust each other and sharing ideas. And then the second year was about finding ways to express those ideas and to be able to share them with others and have greater impact. So we did the very academic thing. We wrote a scoping review with help from doctoral students and a postdoc. We did some arts-based work online, creating collages where people were able to kind of share visually what stigma meant to them. We partnered with a student from Emily Carr and a working group to really design a t-shirt to deliver this message that dementia was really, this was an opportunity to celebrate life. But ultimately, the main real kind of primary outcome of the project has been the toolkit. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Jim. And do we want to show the video first, I think, or do you want to talk about process?
I think the video, but I did want to just mention about the membership of the action group, that we met in person. Really, the membership was centered around the metropolitan Vancouver area. But I do think it's very an important part of the research, or at least the project itself, that going on Zoom allowed for more diversity of membership on the action group. We were able to, I think, have about 4 people from outside the metropolitan Vancouver area. And that, I think, really contributed to the richness of the discussions and the outcomes, because as a former chair of the board of a group that I was with, emphasized to me that what happens in Vancouver does not translate well in the outskirts. And I think that the input that they provided was really very valuable to the project.
Yeah, absolutely. And Granville, I know you're here listening, and you are the member of the group that has come from the furthest away, living outside Prince George in a very small place. I don't know if you have anything you want to add, but I know we learned a lot from discussions about where people were from. Should we share the video? We have do you have anything
No.
to add, Granville? Okay, we have a little 5-minute video that just shows us what the toolkit is. Let's fingers crossed that it works.
Welcome to the Flipping Stigma on its Ear toolkit. Let's have a look through this toolkit, which has been designed by an action group of people with dementia to help others to address the challenges of the stigma and discrimination that people with dementia can regularly experience. As you can see, there are a few options for how someone can enter the toolkit. There is an option for persons living with dementia, family, friends, and care providers, as well as researchers. All options will take you to the toolkit. However, some of the different entry points will provide specific context and information for the different users. Today, we are going to directly enter the toolkit using the options for persons living with dementia. Welcome to the main part of the toolkit. On this introduction page, there is information on how the toolkit was developed, as well as a breakdown of the toolkit's specific aims. All of the information provided in this toolkit is presented from the perspective of people living with dementia, and as mentioned, comes directly from the work of an action group of people with dementia. Let's scroll to the bottom of this page, where you can see that the toolkit is organized under 3 main headings: recognizing stigma and discrimination, responding to stigma and discrimination, and education and advocacy. Let's click on the Recognizing Stigma and Discrimination option. This section begins with definitions of stigma and discrimination based on Action Group's members' experiences and understandings. These are important takeaways for any user of the toolkit to start with a good understanding of the stigma and discrimination that people living with dementia regularly experience. This section also includes first-hand accounts from Action Group members of instances of stigma and discrimination that they have encountered, where they have felt excluded by others, treated as incapable, judged and disrespected, and diminished as a person in their own right. At this point, let's click on one of the options you see here to hear directly from a person living with dementia. Note that these are unscripted conversations where people are speaking from their own experiences and speaking in the moment.
I was going to exercise at the hospital,
And I had been going for about 2.5 months and doing well. And it was kind of on intake, so all of us were at different levels. And on one occasion, they asked me to lead the exercise group. And I was struggling to remember what went first. And a man said to me, "What's the matter with you? Have you got dementia? That's stigma." He made me feel so terrible. I actually quit. I could never find the strength to go back.
Let's move on now to the next section of the toolkit, which focuses on what people can do when they experience stigma and discrimination. On this page, there are 3 options to help people decide how they might want to respond. These sections include deciding how you want to respond, choosing to speak out, and know your rights. Responding to stigma and discrimination is not always easy to do, and there are different ways of responding, which could include not saying anything at all. It's important to remember that there is no one right way. However, this toolkit includes some suggestions, such as recognizing when you feel vulnerable, valuing your wisdom, talking to others, and knowing that each person has something different to say. Let's move to the 3rd section of the toolkit, which focuses on education and advocacy. As one of the action group members has stated, to advocate is to educate. There is an option to go to a resources page, as well as an option that focuses on how people living with dementia can build confidence and competence to be advocates and help to educate others. Let's open that section now. This page includes tips and strategies that people with dementia have found useful. Here you can see them listed out. Let's click on Build Confidence for Public Speaking. If someone would like to learn confidence for public speaking, tips and strategies have been included here for developing this particular skill. Now that you've seen a glimpse of the toolkit, we hope that you will explore it further. Please have a look at it. The toolkit can be found at flippingstigma.com. There are options to provide feedback on each page, so please do send in your comments and feedback so that we can all work and learn together in order to flip stigma on its ear.
I hope that gives people just an overview and understand some feeling for the toolkit that took a lot of effort, a lot of focus on all our reports to make it what it is. And what it is actually is a toolkit that has been being seen around the world. It continues to amaze me, the analytics we get. And some, parts of the world, the United States, but Namibia and Bangladesh and Australia, South America countries and so on are accessing the information. And what we have learned is that they're not just taking looking at the homepage and saying, well, that's not what I'm looking for, so then they leave. That they actually are spending the average time spent, according to what we were told, is 8 minutes and 26 seconds, which is a lot of time for one website, so I'm told. But the development process, I just want to give you an idea that it was not created overnight. As Alison talked about, there was a lot of discussion of what the hell is social citizenship to the identification of stigma. And then the discussion around what do we do? how can we have an impact on stigma, not just in our own backyard, but in a broader sense. And so through the discussion, the members of the action group thought the route to go was something like a toolkit that was online and easily accessible. But then you get into what information should be there and how should it be packaged. And that process, keep in mind, it's all over Zoom. So all people are doing is looking at their screen. And I have to tell you that it is not easy because, you know, in a lot of cases, you're looking at an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper with a lot of black type on it. And that's what you're having to work with and trying to identify how would you make progress from page 1 to page 2 and so on, and section to section. And I, in talking to Alison earlier, I said it really did take up a lot of everybody's bandwidth. Because there were times when I was having some challenges trying to really understand how it would come together, and it really has come together. We have been making presentations in the community, but we've had webinars with the Alzheimer's Society of British Columbia. I think we've had 2 in the series, and they are planning 4 webinars. I recently had a presentation that I made to the Alzheimer's Society Support and Education coordinators who are out in the field in the communities. And I was told that just a matter of hours after the presentation I made to them, one of the coordinators on the North Shore was starting a presentation to a group of people. And before she even was able to utter a word, was asked immediately, "Do you know about the Flipping the Stigma toolkit?" So it made me feel so good for the project, made me feel so good for all the members of the action group, for all the hours of putting it together. It is being seen, it is being used. And for that, I really feel there is great great value in this, and it is a live document. So we are changing and updating the website all the time. Have I missed anything, Alison? I'm sure I have, but
well, let's. I think the next couple of slides are just some indications of some of the, like what you were talking about, Jim, how it's having impact, who's kind of taking it up. This picture was taken at one of the Alzheimer's walks, I think a year or 2 ago, with Lester, who there in the middle, who is a member of the action group, and his wife Cindy, and some others of us on the team. And we're also now doing some work to think about how this can be taken up in healthcare. While the objective of the research was more focused on community work, members of the action group were really clear that their primary care providers needed to know about this. People weren't being treated well. So the toolkit includes a lovely PDF with tips for doctors and other healthcare providers, and we're currently planning a national forum in the primary care context to look at how this toolkit might be adapted or might be used in a practical way to provide better support for healthcare providers. Yeah, go on.
I was just going to say that I think the emphasis on the healthcare and medical practitioners was expressed as a priority, and along with one of the other members of the team, we made a presentation to doctors at one point, and I think it's so important to realize the importance of the toolkit, but the power of the toolkit when some of the doctors filled in a form about the session, and one of the questions was, based on what you learned today, what will you change in your practice? And just on the basis of seeing the toolkit and hearing the presentation, some of the, a few of the doctors were talking about now realizing the importance of talking to and listening to the patient, and not so much emphasis being placed on the caregiver, that they need to understand their own unconscious bias and not make assumptions. So it is an important tool for healthcare and the medical teams. And I just wanted to take a moment, Alison, to really emphasize how significant the need is, but also the toolkit is for this sector.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jim. So this project has been one that's been slow to finish. No one's wanted it to end. And figuring how to wrap it up has been quite a challenge. It could be the subject of a whole other discussion, really, because we all recognize that the work is ongoing. The project has sort of officially ended. I think we decided at 80 meetings in September we'd call it a day, but the work is still happening, and people are still coming together to share this and so on. But of course, the project end date's gone. The funding is limited, but people and the action group members in particular talked about how meaningful it had been, and they wanted to recognize and honor that in some way. So in this last year, at the same time that everyone's been busy bringing the toolkit into practice and educating and doing all of that work, at the same time, there was this very important kind of reflexive process going on with the action group taking time in meetings to tell its own story, talking to each other about what it had meant, and then finding a way to design it. We work with our wonderful design team, Heather and Sam, who you see here on our screen, to help visualize the things that people are saying so that we can now share that with the rest of the world. So we'll take a few minutes. We have a guide. Do you have the physical guide there, Jim? I don't have one in my office. There it is. We've got a beautiful book, but it also is online. So do we have time? We've got a couple minutes to just kind of look through it, Jim. I'm looking at you here. Just kind of stop share and then share the guide. Let me do this. Now, you guys are not seeing what's going on my screen, correct?
No.
So, okay. So I'm going to stop share, and then I'm going to share again. I'm never going to get used to this. And now I'm going to go to here and share this. And now, do you see Flipping Dementia Stigma, the guide?
Yes.
Hopefully, if I do this, it'll work. Are you seeing it change now?
Yes.
Oh, it's a miracle. So we wanted this one to be tangible, that people would have a book. But at the same time, that's not as accessible. So we have this lovely, just this kind of scroll. I'm going to, I don't know how we want to do this, Jim, because we want to have time for some conversation too, but maybe should I scroll and if you have something to say, we'll just do it. What do you think?
Well, I think, yes, you can, but I think what I feel is that you're right that the action group felt they had really achieved a lot and come together as a group and so on. But in true researcher fashion, if you will, they didn't want to keep it, again, amongst themselves. There was value in what they had created in the toolkit. There was value in how they came together. And at the start, there were perhaps one or two people that did know others on the action group, but otherwise they were a group of people who did not know each other. And by going to Zoom, of course, as I say, we added a few more people. And so they had a story to tell, and amongst themselves decided that this was the best way to do it. And again, I don't have those in analytics, but I know that within the first weekend or whatever it became online, it had been accessed and referred to a few hundred times, and so that other individuals, but other groups can learn from the action group how they came together, who the action group is, and the goals of the action group. But then let's talk about you being the people out there and how you might see a gap or feel there's something missing. So let's help you through this guide, help you with the various steps that we think you should go through in moving forward and getting support for your position, your project. And here's how we did it, and here's how you might do it.
Yeah, absolutely. In interest of total transparency, I think there's a glitch here because I'm not able, at least on Chrome, to follow the links. In the hard copy, when you there are one-page bios with photographs of everyone, and I believe that's supposed to link here too, but it's not working on my computer today. Yeah, it looks like that. There's Lynn,
and there's her,
and here's her icon.
Yeah,
and here's some of our past members. But so these are all the ideas that came up in conversation with the group, people talking back and forth and agreeing on what were the most important pieces of the story to tell and how we wanted to tell it. So the importance of bringing lived experience, a sense of urgency. Everyone came to these meetings, like 80 meetings is really, these are people that are driven. And that the group was diverse. People had all kinds of viewpoints, different skill sets, different kinds of backgrounds, lived in different places, had different kinds of supports. And that diversity was really important. As it says, there was no shortage of wisdom here.
Mm-hmm.
And the importance of friendship and trust. This project 4 years later both feels like it's been going forever and that it happened very quickly. But I think for me, one of the most important takeaways is the time it has taken. And, you know, I know as an academic, I know this work takes time, but to really feel it has been quite profound. And it was really about getting to know people and to build trusting relationships.
And they said that this was not a support group, but they, as members, felt the support and were supported by each other.
Yeah, which was that was a conversation that happened early on, because the idea of a peer support group is fairly well established in the dementia sphere. These things happen. The Alzheimer's Society supports them. And we were really clear that that was not what this was to be, that this was to be about taking action. So that kind of sense of urgency to make change beyond your own life was an important piece, but to do it in a supportive way. Had a lot of good conversation about uniqueness, about people's unique strengths, about the uniqueness of the group, about unique backgrounds, but at the same time, having shared values and goals, having a sense of what the group was moving towards. There's a lovely piece that we won't probably spend too much time on here, but it's just the journey, all the different research activities that took place. Some of them looked very kind of researchy, going to conferences. Others were quite different, designing a toolkit, meeting with the Alzheimer's Society to advocate for the return of support groups during COVID, because when COVID happened, support groups for caregivers remained. Support groups for people with lived experience of dementia were shut down. This group wanted to change that. There's the collage that we talked about. How are we doing for time here? I'm going to go.
We have a couple more minutes then we should.
Then we should maybe kind of wrap it up and have some conversation maybe. Why we came together as a group, that shared desire for change, contributing to research and making change happen. And then I believe Craig's comment. We don't do it to get fulfillment, but we do receive fulfillment by accomplishing something that is usable, and people go, hey, that's really helpful. And then there's some practical kinds of guidelines, and they're kind of expressed in different ways. Sort of, this is the part that, we talked about it as a kind of how-to. I think it's more like a call to action, reaching out to other people, saying, here are the things you need to think about if you want to do this too. Being flexible, having good facilitation, not direction. There was a lot of conversation about that in the group. The meetings were facilitated. Always, Jim, you always co-facilitated with someone on the research team. And there was, like, we talk here about the regular housekeeping work, scheduling meetings, communicating between meetings, which was also a staff position. That was Paulina. Again, a whole other presentation about the important role behind, like, between the meetings and behind the scenes. Building relationships. There's a lot of time spent setting ground rules at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Be open and listen, have a sense of humor, and setting time aside for casual catch-ups, which, we had food and a lovely space to start with, and it probably would have been faster in terms of building relationships had we not been online, but we built relationships with a more diverse and bigger group by being online. But we learned just by taking that time at the beginning before the meeting to have a time to catch up on each other's lives was really important. Learning how to advocate and leaving a legacy. Having tangible things that come out of this in the end. And I think we're just about done. This is really, it's not working well to just kind of scroll through, but I'll encourage you to take a look because there's lots of nuance in this. We had lots of questions about seeing needs and becoming curious and finding people who align, and then committing to meet regularly, and then starting to think about moving forward. Did someone else did I hear a voice?
I was just going to say the next page, I think, is really,
Yeah.
I really, that the step by step.
Yeah. So really just these kind of step by kind of unpacking what was kind of long and complex and thinking
Yeah.
about important things that need to be done for people who see a need to do something in the community. So this really is, as I say, a call to action, people with dementia reaching out to others. This is a big deal in the work that we do. We have amazing champions that we work with who show up every 2 weeks for meetings, but not a lot. And we want to be able to grow the work. And so that's, I think, that was that large part of the impetus in creating this guide. How about, there we go, good luck. And some lovely reflections for people with lived experience who were asked to join a research group. Should you say yes or not? That was included. Okay, I think, oh no, I want to come around to, okay, I need to stop share. Because before we open for conversation, I want to go back and just really, where are we? Is this is it. That's the AG guide. I need to share. Okay. And you guys are seeing that, right? It's, there we go. We'll just do it this way. Just to honor the people who've been involved. These have been the action group members from when we first started in 2019 until today. And the research team. So maybe, so what is it? Oh, yeah. We got, okay, I'm gonna stop share.
Yeah.
And then we can see each other. That's better. Okay. Questions, comments? Anything else you want to add? Jim?
No, I just, I get so much enjoyment out of a conversation. And I think it's fine for us to make a presentation, but it's the time when we can fill in the gaps, answer the questions that you may have.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Alison and Jim. And I see Natalie has her hand up right away. So I'm just going to hand it over, and people feel free to put up your hands or put a question in the chat, and I will do my best to manage. Thank you, Natalie. I will hand it to you to engage.
Sorry to be so quick in putting my hand up, but that was really great. Awesome work. The first thing that comes to mind is, do you have some way of monitoring the engagement with the website, analytics on what the response is like, and if you have plans to kind of track it? I'm pretty sure you do, but I'm just curious about what that will look like.
You want to say anything, Jim?
We are tracking it. I'm not sure that I would say that we're doing it like on a monthly basis or whatever, but I believe in metrics and in understanding its usefulness, and part of it is, I think, wanting to make sure that it is still being accessed. So often, I think through, especially because of social media and the internet and so on, you can become more of the flavor of the month. And this toolkit, I personally am bound and determined for it not to be a flavor of the month, because there's just too much value in it. Plus the blood, sweat, and tears that the action group put into it. But so I read you some the analytics from this does go back some months, and I don't have the updated one, but I think that was what we got in June or something. So the analytics are important, and part of that for me is the detail that Sam, who helped on the technical side for us, provides in talking about the average time spent on the website. The time most visited is 1 to 5 p.m. And it's things like that that I find to be really, really important.
Yeah, yeah. So we have a communications team who are just have been partly, it's been a process of learning how to work with them really effectively. And, you know, they're the people that have helped us with the aesthetics, with what it looks like, and bringing shape and bringing images to the ideas, but also the technical side and keeping track and making sure that it does remain, you know, like on popping up early in a search. We had lots of discussion about whether dementia should be in the domain name.
So what did you decide? How did you decide?
We didn't, because, we should go back and look at those notes. What I remember, Jim, is that it made it too long. And I remember at the time, a lot of us thought that idea of flipping stigma was going to be very compelling. And it turns out if you put in dementia stigma, who shows up are the big players like the Alzheimer's Society. But if you Google flipping stigma, we show up. It's like the power of being on the margins.
Marilee, please.
Hi, I just had a question about the launch of your merchandise, and so I feel like I have a little bit of an insider track on that, but I'm really curious about how the team came to the idea that not only did they want to produce these materials and what those materials were, but that there would be demand for the materials, and how that kind of fits in with your KT strategy.
Yeah, there's going to be a store, guys. I can't believe it. It's partly because of those t-shirts, because we've taken them places and we've shown them to other people doing similar work, and people want the t-shirt, and it's like, we want to know how we can buy it. And somewhere the idea came out, well, maybe we could sell them online. But at the same time, so another part of this, so there's other. The t-shirt's the main thing from this, Jim, and the guide. So this gives us a way to disseminate the guide, having a store portal. And of course, you know, the guide is free. We don't sell that, but the t-shirt we sell to recoup our costs, and then a little bit of profit that then goes back into the research. There's another project alongside, funded by the Public Health Agency, that's really engaging with community. And we worked with the same communications team on that project. And there were a lot of different kinds of outcomes out of like tangible deliverables that came out of that project. So there was also, there's some interesting things happening there. We're going to create some card games. Yeah, I'm not going to say too much more. But in terms of thinking about it as a strategy, I don't know. I think it's been working with people who are real artists. It's changed how I've thought about conveying ideas, and it allows us collectively to think about our work in different ways and to think about sharing it really in different ways. And the store, you know, it really isn't about making any money. It's like having a portal where you can find these things easily.
It's one more way to address the stigma, or to have an impact on the stigma of dementia. The people have been wearing it in the community, and in many instances, they have people saying, I want that. And there were enough voices saying, I want that, that I think that also showed us that there was, I don't know, a desire by people, by the community, to be a part of spreading that image of optimism, that image of life isn't over, and because the T-shirt itself is a very brilliant T-shirt in brilliant colors. And it does say, dementia, celebrate life. And they were messages that seemed to be seen and admired by people. So it is one of what I would consider to be one of those knowledge transfer items, that knowledge mobilization and making it broadly available, and I don't know, seeing where they go in the world.
I'm just looking at your comment, Vicki, about the building in with other knowledge exchange platforms, and that's been so true. But so we've managed to loop this one up with the public health agency platform, kind of linking, because there's a platform there. The Alzheimer's Society, the United Way has a national healthy aging core, which again is a knowledge mobilization platform. So we managed to loop it in there. Yeah, super helpful.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm just looking, I'm going to do one more round to ask, does anybody have any other questions or comments? Anybody wants to add anything before we say thank you?
We have 2 minutes.
You have 2 minutes. Ask them now. Seeing none, I just want to say on behalf of the School of Nursing and our community at large, and all of our various partners and people that we get to work with, just thank you so much for this work and for sharing it. I think for many of us, it's just an incredible learning opportunity to see what's possible and the work that goes into real meaningful inclusion. Huge congratulations to your entire team and project, and just, yeah, thank you for being here today.